Hey, everybody, check it out. We're back. I'm not alone all by my lonesome self again this time. We actually have a couple of guests. We have a Beehooligan, one of them anyway, and we got a new guest today. Special fella came calling in through our super secret special Skype connection. So we got actually more than just me. It's an actual special little treat for y'all. Antnee Gaines, Antnee G, is our Beehooligan today. Say hey, Antnee.
What's going on?
What you been doing? You've been down. You've been kind of quiet, Antnee. How's the beekeeping going? You ain't been doing a lot.
Well, you actually went out with me the last time I went out. It was right before my knee surgery. I had knee replacement surgery 3 weeks ago. So
new knees.
So I'm kind of sitting on the mend.
I hear you. Hey,
not easy.
One of the times you and I have sat down, I kind of, for the folks that don't know, Antnee, I kind of help him out now and then, and sometimes I actually am a help. Other times I just kind of watch him do stuff. But you and I, Antnee, have talked before because I'm a big fan of other bees besides honeybees. I like bumblebees and I like mason bees and leaf cutters, and I got, I make the little houses and stuff in the tubes and everything for them. And we've kind of had a brief discussion or two, but I thought, what better than to really get into the topic of native bees and bees other than honeybees than to get a guy that's what he does. You know what I'm saying? Get the guy who really knows what he's talking about. So today our guest is exactly that guy. I went out and I tracked down a guy named Dave Hunter. He's with Crown Bees. It's like, if I remember right, it's crownbees.com. If you can get to that website, it's just like a treasure trove of all the information you could want about leaf cutters and masons and if it's a native bee, you probably find it there. That's what this guy does best. You know what I'm saying?
You're too kind. And this is Dave.
Hey, Dave. He's here.
Good morning. Yeah, actually, that's me.
Yes.
We just don't track those two. We work with the researchers across the U.S., actually across the world. That there's a lot more bees out there, guys, than just the one. Yeah, in fact, out of the 24,000 species, kind of thumb in here, 24,000 species, 7 of them are honeybees. Exactly. So there's a lot of little bees out there. And
I've been noticing, real quick, I don't know if you've been following online, but I noticed in Australia right now, there's a lot of people over in that side of the world that are really picking up on the native bees over there, the what they call the stingless bees that are in like Australia and New Zealand. And that's starting to get to be more, discussed and shown in like, your Instagram and your Facebook groups. Is they're really starting to see more activity and people talking about that, over there as well as over here.
I think it's awareness, that there's maybe more than just the one bee, and you don't always get stung. But the only drawback, there's no honey. I mean, it's just there's out of all the 4,000 species of bees in the U.S., none of them make honey. Which I guess that's all right. But dude, who doesn't like honey?
That's what I'm saying. Most beekeepers, that's what they're there for. I think 9 out of 10 is there for the honey. But the one thing I'll tell you, this is just, I know, and you and I have talked very briefly over the, past as I bought mason bees from you, I don't know, a few years back, and we've had opportunities to, we haven't really gotten to know each other, but we've had opportunities to chat online, here and there. And the thing I really get into the native bees or the not honeybees is pollination. I mean, these bees are just pollinators like you can't imagine in ways that honeybees are great pollinators. Don't get me wrong. They have a very specific, and which is why honeybees are often chosen because of how they can be managed to pollinate. But in terms of effectiveness, they don't hold a candle to some of our native bees.
Yeah. And actually the reason what we've been able to see, your honeybees, I think they're the most sophisticated bee out there. I mean, gosh, you push 15 or 30,000 out there, and they watch the waggle dance. They head off in that one direction, length of the dance, how far they go, and they choose that one tree. And when they're on that tree, all the pollen is packed on their hind legs. And talking with Dr. Musson out of UC Davis years ago. He said, Dave, that's not pollination. That's not pollen. That's bee food. The minute it shows up on the hind legs, it's bee food. It's like, well, all right. And when you're looking at the native bees who aren't that sophisticated, man, they're just putting pollen all over their bodies. They belly flop into flower. It's everywhere. It's on their legs, their heads. And as they're just going from flower to flower, trying to cram more pollen in there, it falls off everywhere. And so between the two, we put our bees in orchards. A good, hive and a half maybe was 30,000, 40,000 bees out there. 400 mesa bees equals that same thing. It's like, and when the farmers are putting those bees out there, they're finding significantly more yield just because the inefficiency of how these bees gather the pollen just falls off everywhere. So,
See,
I could,
you make a good point there, because especially like you talk about, there's like orchards and different tree-based flowers like that. I think I've seen and read a lot more that the interest is growing in terms of the people that are raising those kind of crops are starting to turn more towards your not honeybees. But it's still not probably where it could be in terms of, people planning for the greatest overall pollination effect, the greatest turnout. What kind of things do we need to do, or do they need to do, to get people to understand really the difference in how those bees are pollinating versus the honeybees? I mean, honeybees can be the superior pollinator on certain crops as opposed to other bees. But then you turn around and, like I said, you got specific crops, and maybe even more generalized crops, that the other bees, again, hands down, are going to be the better pollinator in a lot of cases. But because the honeybee has become such a predominant, figure and image in commercial pollination, they get overlooked. It's just like, what has to happen here in terms of how do we get that message to people that, we don't have to, we're not at a point where it's just, we can only, they only have to depend on honeybee pollination.
It's a great question. I mean, and truly, if you look, I think there's like 1.5 million acres of almonds and apples and cherries, et cetera. So there's a lot of stuff out there. If I'm trying to put 1,000 mason bees just to augment, I'm not replacing, I'm augmenting the honeybee. Okay. You put 1,000 bees out there, that means we have to have 1.5 billion mason bees. So between all my peers and I, 3 million. So we're just a few decimals away. I mean, it's just, minor. There's no way, we can do it. So really right now, if I look at the industry, I kind of founded that, 4 or 5 years ago. We collectively have these many bees, but it's our biggest competitor is ignorance. Farmers just, the only bee out there is the honeybee, and that's cool. I mean, that's fine. But if you're looking for more food, we had 2 farmers last year in Nashville. We're putting organic farms, we're putting leafcutter-bees out there. 2 farmers complained, too much food. Really, what's that mean? And one of the farmers was getting acorn squash, and consumers want them so big, okay? He couldn't pick them fast enough, and so we had, too much big stuff on the fields, and they were just rotting. Another farmer had beans. By the time he got back to the front row of the beans, they were dried on the vine. He just couldn't pick them fast enough. And so you look at that, it's like, well, all right. I mean, it's so that farmer's hooked, but it's it is what it is, and we don't have enough of the bees, and so it's kind of supply and demand.
Now could that help? Do you think when we talk about people are very concerned about honeybee populations declining and illnesses and the pests that we have that are affecting honeybee populations rather. But I don't know. Again, reading a lot of your materials, I admit I'm a subscriber to the newsletter and all that because I live for that kind of
awesome
stuff. And but I think a lot of times that, people put the discussion of honeybees and native bees as a competitive thing. And I'm thinking a lot of times we can put it, like you said, collaboratively, and that could actually help ease that burden, that load on honeybees, so we don't have to distress as many honeybee hives because they have some help by bringing in some of these as a backup, as a reinforcement, some of these native bees, people who are managing those little nests and colonies.
Yeah, I think, you look at monoculture. Is that a good thing? Well, it's kind of what we do, but it causes a lot of problems. If you go with monopollination, if that's a word,
Yeah.
why not go poly? Why not hedge your bets on two things? For example, the mason bee comes up probably 5 degrees colder than honeybee. And if it's windy, the honeybees are going to hunker down typically because I got my stores and I got my house. Why do I need to go out in a windy environment? Dude, the mason bee, she's got 6 weeks to lay her eggs, and she's doing all she can. So in windier, kind of a little more humid, the bees are out there because they have to get their eggs laid in 6 weeks. I don't think the honeybees have that much stress on them, and so not that they're lazy, they're less likely to be in extreme environments. So you're now a cherry farmer or apple or pear or whatever, strawberry. If you need pollination, well, your native bees will probably come out, to help alongside the honeybees. There you go.
There you go. So really, again, it comes down to diversity. I mean, I think that's something that we can't ever emphasize enough is people want to focus on that, like you said, that monoculture, that monopollinator source, but because they look at specialization, but really the more diversity we can get, the better all around product and result we're going to see.
Yeah, it takes a little extra time. I mean, right now, the Farmer Brown calls up, hey, Bob, I need some bees. And Bob shows up with bees, and there they are. And the farmer doesn't have to worry about it. If you want to go and put mason, it's just something you don't know. You've got to put holes into the middle of your fields. You've got to release your bees differently. You got to kind of have your hands on this thing. And you might get more food, but right now farmers are so damn busy doing everything. I mean, I don't think they have the time to learn a new trick. Maybe I'm saying that. I'm
curious. I want to know what you think on this. Would maybe that market be more accessible if instead of going to each beekeeper or each commercial beekeeper business operator individually to say, hey, I want honeybees at this time, I need some mason bees or some leaf cutters at this times to get an all about rounded out full effect here. Would it be better to use, and I hate to say a middleman, but really it is a middleman when we talk about the people the contractors who, if I'm sitting out here and I'm saying, okay, I need, I'm talking to 10 farmers and they need X number of honeybee hives, but that can be augmented by, and I know I'm going to see a shortage because I know half of my honeybee beekeepers, lost 30% of their colonies this year, but I can augment that and still cover the whole pollination effect, season by augmenting that with X number of bringing in Dave and, a bunch of his buddies who have nothing but these other bees. And as me as the middleman, I can coordinate instead of depending on that one honeybee pollinator who's got enough on his plate with, like you said, the 20,000 hives. He doesn't want to be messing around with these other types of bees too. But as the middle guy, I can be the contractor. I can talk to, Joe, the honeybee pollinator, and I can talk to Dave, and I can talk to, whoever over here, and pull my trucks in. Would that be a better solution, you think?
That's a real interesting one. Hadn't even thought about that. I had the path I've been thinking was that instead of having an exclusive honey beekeeping manager, why not just change it to beekeeping and have your contractors maybe have more than one bee in their arsenal? But you're right. I'm traveling. I got a lot of work to do. I've only got enough time to focus on what I'm best at. That's interesting. I don't know too many of the. Are you going to call them a bee broker? What's that title?
They actually are brokers, and I mean, a lot of them will roll a semi, or a couple of semis through the Midwest and pick up hobbyist hives. Okay, this guy's got 50. Yeah. He wants to send a winter down that way. They all get accumulated and sent down there, and then they get brought back, by this broker who handles all the transportation and management on the road. Well, why can't that broker say, hey, look, here I need, he's working with the farmer on one side or 10 farmers and saying, okay, I'm going to need this much pollination, and not just look at his honeybee pollination, but I need this much pollination. And I know that these bees can do this, and that. So educating that guy, the broker, as to giving him a list of the different people he can make that come together, because I think more and more we're seeing fewer large scale honeybee, people that are doing it, and a lot more brokers that are having to cherry pick, so to speak, from the multiples that are out there of people with smaller operations.
That's a good idea. I mean, that's okay. A path I hadn't thought of. And actually, at this early juncture with I'm going to call it the mason bee industry, we don't have enough bees.
Sure.
It would be great if, when we hit maybe, I'm going to say 20 million, then all of a sudden we're now looking. Leafcutter-bees for your summer crops, beans and squash and pumpkins and, all those things. That's a cool idea. That's a really interesting idea. Okay. After our conversation, Tony, you might be able to introduce me to one. Maybe
I can do that. I can definitely do that.
That's funny. Okay.
So we've gotten to the tech side about this. We started off with, feet hit the ground, rubber hits the road.
Yeah.
And let you kind of really kick butt, get in there with your applied knowledge. But I talked to you before. We sat down for a while, and this is a very interesting twist or take on beekeeping, pollination, and all of that. And especially when you talk into the specialization of not honeybees. Where did Dave get into not honeybees? When did that happen? How did that happen? Yeah, actually, about 20 years ago, I'm an engineer by degree, and I'm a real estate director. Airborne Express was a big old company, overnight company in Seattle. When that got bought out by DHL, and then they closed their doors a few years later, bequeathed with time off. There you go. There's a formal word. Can you go take a hobby and you look at the almond industry, and they actually, a few years before I got into it, the almonds were, because it's the biggest pollination event in the world. Is there something else that they could use? And they actually went out and investigated. The whole board investigated the mason bee and concluded after a few years that it is an or equal. Okay. And I'm looking at that. God, could I get into that thing and do it myself? So yeah, you just kind of fast forward. You put your shingle out in your garage, and you open up a website, and then you just kind of get bigger and bigger. And finally, you start bringing in nurseries. I'm in I don't know. We're in probably 300 or 400 nurseries around the nation, and you get a little bigger. Here's Tractor Supply knocking on our door. Oh, okay, and then yeah, it's scary. How do you handle big box? And now we're touching farms. We're gonna have a website out there, farm.crownbees. I mean, we're moving in all these paths. And you have to stand back and you have to realize it's opening an industry. I founded the mason industry. Okay, it's not that tough. You kind of collaborate, get people involved. But the scary part about growing a business yourself, it seems like everyone does it, but you hear the successes more than you hear the failures. It's just spooky. Hey.
What makes me God's gift to running a company? You make some mistakes and you try not to piss anybody off, and ethics. Always tell the truth, and it's.
Well, you figure out how to do that. You let me know, because that's one thing I excel is ticking everybody off.
No, I think he hit the nail on the head with his word choice, his vernacular.
Piss him off, Tony.
There you go.
Hey, you're good at something, you got to go with it, right?
Yeah, and it's an adventure, and I'm now an old company, been here 9 years, and it's so what am I doing? Trying to be walk the talk. Have to always tell the truth. If you make a mistake, you call it out. And I don't know. That's me.
Yeah, I hear it. You talk about that small start, though. And I have a question for you, because I remember your newsletter, and every year it comes out, and especially after you harvest the cocoons, one of the pieces of advice you give, and you've been given this advice for years now, is that put them in the refrigerator down in the cooler section.
There you go.
You've given that advice for a while, but I know a lot of beekeepers whose significant others frown on that a little bit. So, so when Dave got this idea to say, hey, let me sell these things. So I'm going to collect not just a few cocoons, but I'm collecting like hundreds of them. and I'm putting them in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
Did the significant other make you buy, or was there one you even had to worry about? Are you just one of those few that didn't even have to, hey, I got an extra refrigerator sitting around and nobody to tell me I can't?
Craigslist is my best friend. Yeah. They are not, my bees weren't really, there's a lot of them. They weren't really allowed in the family fridge. That is a true fact. Into the garage. And then you go out and you put a window shaker on a shed, and you learn how to cool that thing down. And then you get big enough. And now I got a couple coolers, Pepsi coolers in my office over here. So we probably got a good, maybe 500,000 bees in a cooler. So yeah, you have to have permission. There you go.
Yeah.
Put them in the fridge.
I'll tell you what, when I first started putting the little cocoons in I'm like, I only have one refrigerator in my house at the time. So here I'm trying to collect some, but at the other time I'm like, well, I want to get a good start. So I got some from Dave. I called up Dave and said, hey, I need 6 tubes of them. And, I got my tubes and some other stuff that I had picked up and started hitting towards the refrigerator. My wife, my boss, my boss says,
what the,
where are you going? And what are those? Oh, these are bees. And they're going to come out in the spring. Where do you think you're putting them? Oh, I'm going to put them in the chiller, the little, where you put the celery and stuff. And she's like, no, I don't think so. But then when I showed pictures, see, this is how you win, guys. I'm going to tell you right now, or ladies that have to convince the other one. You show them a picture of an emerging mason bee, one of the possibly cutest bee images you'll ever see, and you'll win right there. It'd be like, but this poor little thing, look at this cute little thing. It wouldn't hurt a flea.
It is actually way cool to sit there with a bee as they come out of a cocoon in your hand in the spring. It's as silly as that is, and I don't know, I would know how easily that'd be done inside a honeybee hive. But you got this thing looks like a little raisin, and then whether you cut it open with scissors or it comes out on its own, dude, it's a bee. It comes out, it poops on your hand. That's kind of just natural, and it sits around 3 or 4 minutes and then flies off. But you're just
and that's
singing.
Cool. The first time you have
that is cool.
A mason bee cocoon in your palm of your hand, and the heat of your hand warms that thing up enough. You feel this thing. You can feel it tremble. You literally feel this thing coming out of chewing its way out of the cocoon, and it pops out and it starts walking around. It is just the coolest thing ever. That's just so cool.
Now, aren't you kind of a traitor to your kind? Isn't that you're allowed to do both, honey and mason? Is that all right?
Oh, dude, what do you think? I'm a bee hooligan. We don't follow rules. Bee hooligans do not follow rules. We just go out and make new paths.
There you go. Getting them started.
Yeah. Okay,
I don't know. Yeah, I've never been one to follow what everybody else thinks I should be doing, because I usually have some choice words for that. I have language that I can't engage in all the time.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So then actually you go past me and then you find there's a few nuts out there, but it's becoming more, I don't know, natural to be thinking beyond just the one bee. I've got a teammate of mine.
Yeah. I get people who take these classes here locally, and I'll have people who take the honeybee beekeeping classes. And I think probably if I've got 10 students in a class, at least 2 of them, minimum 2, maybe more, are going to ask me, hey, I've heard about, and it's almost always mason bees, or bumblebees, those 2. And, how do I get into that? And I've got another dude that's my bumblebee guy, and he provides me with bumblebees, and I go capture them. I go rescue them too from locally. But then anytime somebody asks me about mason bees, I'm like, go to this website, go talk to Dave, and he'll hook you up.
Well, wouldn't it be good if you had your honeybee keeping, your associations all across the country? Wouldn't it be cool if they could go out and do a 100 level course? Hey, here's solitary bees, mason, leafcutter. Go try that. Learn about those things, and then your 300 level courses are, I'm going to say honeybees are tougher. A lot more maintenance, a lot more cost, a lot more, equipment. But get them started with a low level piece, and then so still the Beekeepers Association have their hands on bees.
Yeah.
And those guys, it's not just one; it's inclusive. Wouldn't that be cool? You'd probably get way more members to start off, kids, etc. And then, you can pull them to honeybees. So kind of the gateway drug might be the simple, gentle thing. And then you pull them into the, now let's go try the sophisticated. You try these little ones, go a little deeper. Wouldn't that be a way to maybe get more members? Just saying.
I agree with you. I know, as a matter of fact, coming up this spring, I've introduced to where I'm teaching beekeeping courses. I'm going to be adding a whole series of other bees based on the backyard beekeeping book series. We're going to take some pages out of that and introduce people to different, all the different kinds of bumblebees and mason bees and leaf cutters. And so each class will focus on a different one of those with a craft so that they'll actually get to make like a little, mason bee house or a leaf cutter house or a bumblebee nest kind of holder and learn about, and then they get to take that home with them. So, and as they've learned through that class, how to try to maybe attract them for the next spring.
Nice deal. That's actually, Well, we've got PowerPoint slides. If anyone wants to teach mason bees, flip to our site. You'll find under Get Involved, there's Talk and Teach. So if you want to do that, we've already got those slide decks for you.
Now, what's that website again, Dave?
There you go, crownbee.com.
That's simple.
You'll find it is that simple. There you
awesome.
go.
Well, what, folks? I'm looking, and as they always say, time flies when you're having fun. And today we're having a ball. Dave, I really appreciate you coming out and hanging out with us. And I would love to have you on again sometime in the future when you get a point. You got a buddy of yours that does he really gets into the honeybee side of things. So you guys kind of tag team the native and the bumblebee, honeybees together as a kind of a teamwork thing. Maybe we could get you guys and see the argument happen.
Yeah. Jay Williams, he's a honeybee farmer in Nashville. Awesome guy. Yeah. It'd be great to have him on as well.
Yeah. Well, excellent.
Thanks
Thank you very
for the
much.
invite. This was good.
Andy, thank you for making it in, bud, with your hobbling knee and everything. I hope you feel better soon. You got crutches coming, I think, don't you?
Well, I got the walker for a couple more weeks, and then I'll be going to crutches. Yeah, so it's not fun.
How many old man jokes are you hearing with that walker? Dude, I'm serious.
Yeah.
All right, guys. You guys have been awesome today. This is the Be Smart Beehooligans, or the Be Smart Beekeeping Podcast, featuring your Beehooligans. And today's guest, Dave. Hey, Dave, real quick. How many times you heard this joke? Hey, Dave. Hey, man, Dave's not here. It's an old Cheech and Chong joke. I can't help myself. It's Cheech and Chong. I grew up weird. All right, guys. Dave Hunter, you are awesome, bud. I hope people go to your website. And don't forget, folks, you can learn a whole lot about all kinds of bees at the Be Smart Beekeeping Project at besmart.bb-tech.com. Go there today. Y'all have a good one.